It is the pink elephant theory. If the guest wants a pink elephant, get them a pink elephant. If you can't find a pink elephant, get a horse, paint it pink, convince the guest it's an elephant. Do whatever it takes to ensure they're happy. That's it. Are they happy? Well, today is slightly different than normal. You're going to hear a lot of stuff going on in the background, birds, God knows what else you're going to hear going on behind me. It was two reasons today is actually special for the podcast, Pink Elephant. One, I'm in Africa, and that doesn't happen too often, but had the insane opportunity to do a project over here, and I'm actually sitting in the middle of the Masai Mara, which is inside Kenya on a reserve at a brand new, beautiful luxury property, the new JW Marriott, which is the first one to open a safari. I don't even know what it's called, a safari club here, and that we got to be a part of. And the second reason is I'm actually talking today with Jason Sanders. He's actually our Senior Vice President of Development, and a lot to talk about, man. Can you hear all this stuff going on in the background?
Yeah, I'm just wondering when we're gonna see some pink elephants come through the
I,
background.
you
It's
know,
it's like complete fake background. I'm gonna copy it and save it for mine.
It's crazy because I'm staring out. This is actually the balcony of the patio of it's called a tent. It's these really, really lush bungalows. It's the ultimate glamping experience, that's for sure. And literally my view is across this river, and it's nothing but wildlife. I mean, I've been here for 2 weeks, and I've seen lions and giraffes and elephants and rhinos and cheetahs, like in their environment, right? Like I'm not at a zoo. At any point in time I could die. It's the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. Um, so dude, thanks so much I know the time change here. It's crazy late for you and extremely early for me. So thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, happy to do so. Uh, yeah, who'd have thought we could parlay drinking careers into something like this?
Yeah, it's the hospitality industry is a crazy thing. It's funny you say that, and I will go ahead and bring this up. Um, I'm here doing this, and it's we've opened, God, I can't even tell you how many hotels we've opened over the years. This is the first of a kind for me, right? And what you just said is super interesting because I'm here with a bunch of individuals that are from this area, that have never experienced anything outside of this area. And when you talk about this industry that is right now having a huge challenge from a labor standpoint of people not wanting to be a part of this industry, I don't know that people really understand the possibilities that are attached to being in this industry, right? I mean, I'm sitting here in the middle of one of the most amazingly beautiful places on the planet, and I'm afforded this opportunity because I'm a part of the hospitality industry. And I don't think people really understand the possibilities to be this industry, and it blows my mind. And I mean, I look at where you and I are right now and where we started, and I think if you would have told either of us 20 something years ago, we've worked together for freaking probably 15 plus years, I don't know that I would have ever thought in a million years that we would be here. Is that a fair assessment?
I mean, 100%. There is no way, and uh, I've been in this industry a lot longer than 20 years. I hate to admit that, but even 20 years ago, I didn't think I saw the possibilities, and it's really been a great opportunity to work with some inspiring leaders, in some amazing cultures in hospitality, and really get to continue to grow that. And I feel like we are really uniquely positioned to keep doing that. We've drawn on some great relationships and really turned what could be, I think a quote unquote normal career into something pretty amazing. And I think that hospitality is one of those fields that does that.
Yeah.
There's opportunity out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both of us kind of kicked off our careers with a very large company, to say the least. Both of us were kind of raised within Ritz Carlton, and then have split off, obviously. And now we still get to work with Ritz Carlton, just in a different capacity than we were when we were on property or at corporate offices. What was it like for you? Because it's only been a few years that you've transitioned from working for the mothership, to now being an SVP over at EAG. I'm curious for you, what has been the emotional roller coaster of that journey of going from something that we both knew, very well, and it was a comfort zone. It's still a comfort zone for, I think, for us, um, to now transitioning to EAG, and I would say the craziness that is attached to being a part of EAG. What's that been like for you?
It it's been a ride, I tell you. So I spent 23 years with the mothership. Um, Really had a great time. I mean, it gave me a huge grounding in what luxury hospitality is. It also really impressed upon me, a lot of things that aren't super sexy about hospitality. The need for real processes, for being able to define what it is you're doing and what your brand is, and how to grow that beyond one location to scalable to, I mean, 8,000 locations, currently for Marriott. And that's really what gave me the grounding in hospitality that's let me continue to grow. So yeah, absolutely amazing experience. I thought I'd be there forever. COVID kind of changed the world, right? And maybe start looking at some things, and that's when you and I started talking, and I I remember we had a talk, God, almost 3 years ago now, and so things are going to be different post COVID, and there's going to be a real need for companies that are a little more small and more nimble and able to pivot and address the issues that are affecting our industry. And I think that we have a great opportunity here to pull in some like-minded people and really create something that makes an impact. So yeah, leaving 23 years of a corporate career behind was really a difficult thing to do. And I think we've positioned ourselves right now to continue to make an impact in that same industry and even with that same company, um, but really creating our own culture.
Yeah. It's crazy when we first started these conversations. um, you know, you brought up COVID, and COVID was one of those times for EAG where it was a pivotal moment for us, and I had to make some choices on what direction. I mean, there was one of two choices, right? You either, like, try and cut as much as you possibly can, and
Yeah,
try and salvage anything you possibly can, or say, you know what, screw it, throw everything we have at the wall and go big or go home. And I went that route, of course, of swing for the fences and see what happens. And I think the only reason, one of the reasons, that it's worked is the fact that we had individuals like yourself that were willing to come on board and kind of see the vision that we had of the direction we were going and what we were trying to do. Because at that point, EAG was great, right? Things were in a great place, but the vision, I think, that we were putting out, that what we wanted to do was, it was big. It was something that it would have been big during good times. During COVID times, it made zero sense.
just crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. But I'm beyond grateful that, people like yourself and Maricela and Kenny and Christy. I mean, I can go through the entire team. And then Robbie came on board, and we had individuals that, during a time when most saw, um, bleak and negative, and everything that was going wrong, we had a team of people that, some way, somehow, saw vision and saw opportunity and saw potential and possibilities. And I couldn't be grateful that we have a team that was able to do that, and we were able to really put in place something that's become super special. I mean, I will say this podcast is probably going to air probably about a month from now, realistically. And I will say in a month from now, we probably have two or three pretty major announcements coming out about EAG. And so it's wild to think that the vision that we had then, I think when you and I were sitting in LA with Marisol and writing stuff on our glass walls in the
Yeah.
offices of ideas and visions, and the fact that now
How we're going to
stuff,
be different.
yeah, yeah, and it's happening, right? It's not a pipe dream. It's a reality for us now, and it's crazy, man. It's crazy to think that we're not the little bitty company anymore that's hoping for things. Now, we're growing fast and furious, and have some crazy big stuff on the horizon. So it's thank you for being a part of it, and it's been an interesting ride, I think, for all of us for sure. Um, what do you think is what's the next evolution? I know some of the stuff that we're doing. I know some of the stuff we're doing in hospitality and what we're doing with our brand specifically. What do you think the next evolution is that has to take place in our industry for us to see a shift happen from scrambling for people to come back to it and excitement to be in it?
Oh, well, without giving away some of those announcements that are coming, um, honestly, this is a conversation we've had a lot lately. Not just you and I, but throughout EAG. And it is how, so we've created an amazing culture with you know, couple of dozen people, right, in EAG and our core team, and we're growing, I mean, beyond what we ever thought we would a couple of years ago. But how do we take this culture that has, some of those core foundations that we put in place here, and that's, just a crazy competitive drive to be the absolute best at what we do, to the founding principle of complete frankness and being able to bring up concerns at all times, and really creating a culture where everybody feels like they're a part of it and not just working for it, and growing that beyond the small company that we have now, which is infinitely bigger than we thought it would be 3 years ago, but still relatively small, right? um, I really think that's something that has to happen in the industry too. That hospitality, let's face it, has never been the easiest field to work in the best of times. And the last few years haven't been the best of times, and I think it's really made a lot of our workers or coworkers within the industry think about whether or not it's really worth that effort. And it's hard work to be in hospitality, and you need to feel that you're part of something greater than just coming in and doing your job and going home. And I think creating culture at every level that makes everyone feel like they're moving in the same direction is going to be really important, and it hasn't been necessarily the most important thing in the hospitality industry historically.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't agree more. And we use the term all the time, the difference between creation of culture and the cultivation of that culture. And man, it is tough when your focus is always on what your outcome going to be versus taking care of your people in the moment. And I think we forget we're always so focused on the guest, right? And it's a hospitality industry, and we should be, right? The guest, that's the reason why we do it. But the reality is, when we talk about the leadership aspect, I think that is the missing link on the culture. right? And I think when the leaders can make sure that we're as focused on our people as our people should be on our guests, is when we start to find success. That's when you start to see culture come alive and sustain. It's easy during an orientation to preach culture and put cool slides up on a screen and tell people what you are and what you believe. It's what are you doing on day 30, 60, 90, 370, 5 years later? Can they still look back at day one and go, yeah, that's exactly who they say they are? And that's tough. That's tough because you are highly dependent upon your leaders living, breathing, and being fully immersed in that culture that you've established. And I think the thing about culture is it's more than slides on a screen. It's something that you, honest to God, live every day. It's who you are. It's your DNA. And I think that's something that you should look at when you're hiring people, is that does your culture and who you are as a company, does it reflect the natural tendencies of the person you're talking to? Because if they have to become something different to be a part of your company, then it might not necessarily be a good fit. It doesn't mean that they can't become that person. They might already have tendencies to move in that direction and they need somebody to
Hmm.
mentor and coach them. And those are the people that you and I love, those individuals that we can grab a hold of and pull the best out of them. But if you have people that that's just not who they are, that's cool. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just might not be a good fit for our movie. And so, I mean, culture, dude, leadership and culture go hand in hand. And those two things for you and I are beyond important at EAG. And I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to see our brand grow. Because even on the tough days, when things aren't going right, we still hold true to our core values of what we believe. And that's just that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, I mean, we just talked about it a couple of weeks ago. We did a job fair, a hiring event for a property, and we weren't necessarily looking for the people with 30 years of experience, right? We can teach skills. We can teach
Yeah.
a skill set or job duties, right? You look for people that embody that passion. That you can't teach people to care, right? You can teach people steps of service any day, but you can't teach them to care about the experience for the guest. And if you find people who buy into that, um, and that's a culture that you're creating, then you can do whatever you want from there on. It's all about finding the right people and cultivating that culture.
Yeah. How much, I'm here. It's been interesting. I'll tell you, I'm here. Obviously, you could hear everything going on behind me. And every once in a while I look up to make sure there's not like something coming over like the railing to take me. But It's it's been interesting here because some of the as we developed what is luxury in this space, it's finding that balance between the guests that are going to be coming here want to still be engaged with everyone else around the world. So they still want to take their pictures, post it on Instagram, share it with family. They want to FaceTime their friends. So you need an element of technology, but they're also you can't put too much tech into where we're at because then it takes away the authenticity of where you are, right? How do you
Yep.
think technology is going to play a part moving forward in hospitality? I think you and I, our team has this conversation a lot of being very ahead of the curve with a lot of the things we try to do. And I've always said I think hospitality is way behind the curve in utilizing technology. But then is there a line, right? We're in the people business. I think there's an element of the human aspect that is extremely important, especially in the luxury segment. How much how much should we lean into technology within the hospitality sector right now, in your opinion?
And that's you and I come from old school Ritz Carlton, right? Where it's all about personalized experience and tailoring it to the guest. And that's still what I think of when I think of luxury service, but really we have to consider what technology can do. One of the things we used to talk about, shoot, 20, 25 years ago, was unobtrusive service, how to anticipate guest needs without being, front and center, right? Making the guest experience the centerpiece. And I think that's where technology gives us a huge leg up. You're no longer, and you still have to be observant, but the days of 30 years ago of trying to divine guest experiences from or guest preferences from everyday interactions. For instance, Mr. and Mrs. Smith like Diet Coke because she drinks Diet Coke in our spaces, right? That's something that is you can track and you can replicate, right? But I think especially with the advances in AI these days, you have tremendous amount of capability of customizing the guest experience and allowing the guest to customize it without being intrusive. So that's something that we've had actually a lot of talks about recently, is trying to figure out how to leverage technology to offer a tremendously personalized experience without being intrusive into the guests' lives. So we're talking about that on a daily basis on what that looks like. How do we ask the guests what you want to experience and let us create that for you without coming out and giving them a questionnaire and says check, 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 right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
I think there's a tremendous amount of potential on technology side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head of how to utilize it to benefit us without detracting and taking away from that human touch of really what the luxury space is. And I think that I pray, and I hope that we're the ones continuing to drive this of finding those ways to utilize technology to benefit what we do. Versus utilizing it too much and taking away from the personal touch, or saying that we don't want to use technology at all and not taking advantage of what's in front of us. And I think that finding that balance between the two is going to be extremely important moving forward. And I know we have a lot of stuff in the works on that, and hopefully those are some of those things that we can help kind of bring to the forefront. Because when I look at hotels in the US, we get to travel abroad a lot, and when I look at hotels in the US and I look at the food and beverage experiences happening within hotels, it is, I think it's safe to say we're not where we need to be. And I don't think that's a shock to anyone to say that. And I think that unfortunately we have hoteliers running restaurants versus restaurateurs running the restaurants inside hotels. And how do you think how do you see us turning the curve and changing the perception of um, the customer, the guest in the U.S. specifically, that says we can have amazing, successful restaurants within our hotels without guests feeling like they're not at an amazing, cool restaurant inside of a hotel.
Yeah, and I think there's been a tidal shift on that, and especially at the luxury segment, over the last, say, 10 years. And I think that's been led particularly by the Ritz Carlton and other luxury brands, and they've realized that creating a great restaurant in a hotel isn't enough. You have to create a great restaurant that's a destination. When you think about it, we don't make it easy to go eat in a restaurant at a hotel if you're not a guest there. You have to get dressed up. You have to drive your car there. You can't show up with your car dirty, because you're going to show up at valet because there's no self parking. Like it's an ordeal, right? So there has to be a reason to go. So creating these compelling destinations has really been a shift, I think, in thinking for luxury from a restaurant point of view, and that needs to continue. And we need to start thinking of things like, from a restaurant point of view, do you have, is there any kind of visibility outside? Is there any sort of pedestrian traffic nearby, or is there a way of seeing it as a restaurant that happens to be within a hotel as opposed to a hotel restaurant? And I think that's the mind shift that we really need to keep pushing is that we're creating great restaurants that happen to be in hotels. We're not creating great hotel restaurants. And that's
Yeah, I
at
also
my
think,
last
I mean,
hotel. I never wanted to be part of the top 10 hotel restaurant list.
yeah,
I wanted to be part of the top 10 restaurant list, and it
yeah,
happened to be in a hotel.
and I think also, the obvious of we've got to look at how our pricing structures. We have to look at half the time we
100%.
price ourselves out of the market, and I still don't understand why, but we do on a consistent basis. We do it, and I
I think
think,
hotels have done it historically because they can. You know, when you look at breakfast restaurants and hotels, and their average check is $35 for breakfast. I mean, I don't remember the last time I went and spent $35 for breakfast unless I was forced to at a hotel.
yeah,
But when you can create a relevant experience in a hotel, it's a great breakfast experience that I might actually spend if I went to a breakfast restaurant in my neighborhood for $15 to $20, then it's more a compelling experience.
yeah, no, absolutely, and I think you're also seeing a shift in just when we talk about the luxury space in restaurants, fine dining, right? Fine dining is changing. That there's constant articles and conversations happening around what does the future of fine dining look like. Um, the number one restaurant in the world recently closed because the
Mhm.
chef said it doesn't make sense. The structure of how to execute that traditional fine dining experience, just can't do it. And I think you're seeing a shift on what fine dining is, or what's considered fine dining, um, and what is a true luxury experience, right? When we talk about luxury and what it was for us with Ritz Carlton 20 plus years ago, and what luxury is now, I think there's two different things. And I think um, making sure that we stay ahead of that curve, making sure that we talk about what luxury actually is. What is our guest? How does our guest interpret luxury? I guess is a better way of putting it than saying luxury has changed. I think the
Yeah,
foundational principles of what luxury is always going to be there. How we deliver it, I think, is continuing to evolve. And I'm hoping with that evolution, food and beverage is a part of that ever change that's happening. So,
yeah. I mean, honestly, a big part of the fine dining, the shift in guest perception for fine dining goes back to the culture we were talking about. There's more and more exposure right now of what it takes to execute a restaurant at the quote unquote, 3-star Michelin, super fine dining level, right? And it's a huge amount of dedication and, you know, not necessarily the best work-life balance. And those stories are starting to become more and more, I guess, common, not common, but well known, widespread. And and people are saying, are those the kind of experiences that we really want to support, we want to grow, or do we want to support the kind of establishments that really create a great place for people to work? And that's not just for guests. That like chefs who have run these restaurants for decades are saying the same thing, saying maybe this isn't the best model. Maybe we should look at creating a culture that it's allows people to grow and enjoy their lives outside of work and look forward to coming into work. And that's really what we were talking about 30 minutes ago, is creating a culture.
yeah. Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think as we wrap this thing up, it's we know that we know we have to create culture. We know we have to take care of our people. We know we have to invest in them. We know that they need to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and create something that's bigger than themselves. And we need to make sure that the same way that we talk about it's guests first and we care as much about our guests as we do, we need to make sure that we keep it as people first and we care as much about our people as we do our guests. And I think if companies and organizations can understand that, and it's tough, right? Because you've got a lot of outside factors, different ownership groups and funds that are demanding the P&L to look a certain way. But if we can push past that, I think we'll get to the point where the P&Ls will get where everybody wants them to be. But that's going to be a difficult task if we don't focus on our people first, those that are on the front lines executing and taking care of those guests. We have to ensure that they're our priority with everything that we do. And that's not always the easiest decision when you're staring at a P&L. But like we say, do the right thing, and let the chips fall where they're going to. As long as we're making the best decisions and the right decisions, then things are going to work out the way they should in the long run. So, man, I can't thank
100%.
you enough uh, for letting me steal a little bit of your time. It is crazy late where you're at. But I couldn't pass up an opportunity to have this backdrop and force you to stare at it for the entire time as we
I
chatted
have been
through.
staring at it too.
I know, man.
I just want to see a giraffe walk in the background.
Right. That's one of those things that actually could happen. So, again, thanks, man. Thank you, one, for everything you do at EAG, and with our team. You're a silent killer, man. You're not always the most vocal, but man, you're a genius, and I appreciate everything you do and being a part of this wild ride that we're creating. If everyone knew the stuff that's in the pipeline right now, and the things that are about to be announced, it's crazy where we're going, and I couldn't be happier that you're along for the ride with me. So thanks for being a part of it, man.
I wouldn't be anywhere else right now.
Good to hear. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget, you can follow along on this crazy journey through social as well. You can go to the website, www.ellisadamsgroup.com. You can follow us at Ellis Adams Official on Instagram, or even myself at Chris Adams _EAG. Jay, are you on social? I mean, you're on social, but you're not on
Um,
social.
yeah, I like have a small presence, but no,
You can
I
feel free to
I'm not
search it.
enough that I have followers. One influencer in EAG is enough.
Oh my God. Enough. Thanks so much. We'll chat with everyone soon. Follow along with us. Please reach out to us. We'd love to interact with you. And hey, you never know. We got a lot going on. We'd love to have you a part of the EAG family too as we continue to grow. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.